Football with friends is fun as hell. My name is Alex Dunlap here with Cody Carpentier on a big Monday, a spring break Monday, but no days off around here. Cody, big weekend.
Alex, one of my favorite things, this is not to go backwards or take us off track, but I just realized this. One of my favorite things from going to Indianapolis is these bathroom naps from Harry and
Oh,
Izzy's. I
yeah.
just realized they had that for my water cup. But no, big weekend. Sorry for getting off track right away, but big weekend for recruiting from LSU, from Oregon. A lot of recruits that Texas has kept their eyes on, whether it's Booby Feaster, who feels like that window might be closing, or Zayden Krempin, the tackle from Prosper. That is one of the feature tackles that he was at LSU this weekend. Now today and tomorrow and Wednesday, he'll be up at Michigan and Ann Arbor taking in some of their practices. And
That guy's
he's getting
sending his
around.
parents to the poorhouse, man. If he's having to pay for all these trips, dude.
Hey,
God.
he was the one a week ago that paid for his own way to go to Clemson, remember? And he got the offer from Clemson. That was unofficial, paid his own way to go all the way out to Clemson from Texas, got the offer, made it worth it. Then he was at LSU this weekend. Now he's at Michigan. And then I think next weekend, I could probably check my – I think
Sounds like the word's getting out about Zayden Krempin. People are realizing he's good.
I think he had one more team. So he's got Michigan this week, and then nothing this weekend, and then he's got A&M the following weekend. And then the last time I talked to him, he didn't have dates for Texas or Ohio State yet, but those were on his docket. So six planned spring visits for Zayden Krempin.
What about this KJ Edwards thing I had in that column yesterday? So that's the thumbnail.
It's worrisome to me.
Yeah. So here's what it was. So there's this column for the weekend. It's mainly like Jason and Cody and Jaylen and Catch throws in on it. The guys that handle a little bit more of the recruiting focus. That's but clearly I cover recruiting and follow it too. And so yesterday we were kind of talking about, all right, let's get caught up with some of these players who've been on visits this weekend, or if there's anybody any sources close to these guys. There happens to be like from the trainer coach side of things that I just talked about before because of how much, how big of fans, Cody and I were of Jaylen Osborne, the running back, right? So I called around and talked to some people about this guy. And so had a couple connections there. He was at Georgia this weekend. And, it said, so I was like, so what did he think of it? And this person told me, he's like, dude, he just says UGA is just something different, man. He goes, if you've never been to a Kirby Smart practice, that's just a must. He goes, just so organized, high intensity. And we've heard this stuff about, you can see why they win and why they play at a high level just based on practice is what this guy was saying. And this is somebody who's coached practices. He was saying that it really felt like to him this was a multi-day trip for Jaylen Osborne, and we'll get back to what this means about KJ Edwards and all of it. But as far as I'm like, well, so UGA kind of toward the top of the heap right now, probably for Osborne, and this dude's like, oh yeah, for sure. So that's that. If you didn't think that, if you thought that he was like a lock to go to Michigan, or thought it was down to Texas and Michigan or anything like that, at this point, man, for Jaylen Osborne, his huddle is just ridiculous. And even with his junior year, he played, what was it, Cody? Like half of it with a broken hand.
Yep.
But still, just super impressive. Through the course of it, I'm like, well, I cover Texas, and so like people are going to want to know like what's up with that. And then he just says that the communication hasn't been the same with Texas as it's been with some of these other schools, and the reason why is, he said, because everybody knows that KJ is their top target. And I was like, everybody knows that. This is somebody in a unique position to sort of know. So I look at that and I think to myself, well, Okay, KJ Edwards, obviously, I mean, very good. He's a rival 6.0 5-star.
High four.
Or is 6.0 not a 5-star?
High four, yeah. That's the
Oh,
high
okay.
four.
So I always get that mixed up. So
You're good.
6.0 is a 5-star. And I mean, I watch his tape, and how can you not, you turn on his huddle reel and it's like, 2,200 all-purpose yards, 28 touchdowns, all this stuff, and you see him and the way the way he moves, his contact balance, general speed, all this stuff. He's 5'10", 175, and so you think that he probably. Do you think KJ Edwards has the? Well, first of all, before we talk about KJ, I mean, what do you think about that and this Javion Osborne stuff? And is it to the point where we can? Because people were panicked about the Jaylen Lott update, right?
Mhm.
And him saying like, oh, like I really love, what was it, Oregon? But like he's just all these schools. He lists off a whole group of schools. Texas didn't seem like one of them. And uh, you hear that, you're just like, oh, well, like, gosh. It, but with that, we could say, dude, it's still every time with some of these players, every time they go to a new school, they get infatuated with that new school.
Mm.
And it's just March. And set the alarm and wake me up sometime around the SEC championship game when Sark and Jeff Banks and all these guys are closing on these dudes. And they're getting their plan together to close. And even when this is kind of a panic time, and there's going to be another panic time that comes in June through the official visits. People are going to say, why aren't they getting commits on these official visits? And Catch is going to talk to sources around the program. They're going to say, just wait, bide your time. Like there's going to be we're going big game hunting for certain guys, and there's going to be some that commit before the season. And then we have our eyes on the rest of this stuff. And if you were to just go with that and go with that as your just default setting and your initial assumption about the way that this staff does things, I couldn't blame you for it. It's the more reasonable way of thinking about things based on what we've seen from you can only base your future expectations on the past performance, right? And so it's like, I mean, they always close really well. They always have like a top 2, top 3 class, number 1 class sometimes. So I get with the Jaylen Lotts of the world and with some of these guys, I just think it's crazy to panic in March. But this is a long-winded way of me asking you. Yeah, I mean, is it time to panic about Javion Osborne? Even though I just went through all this stuff. I mean, is it?
I think there's two different parts to this equation and conversation. Obviously, we just watched the running back coach walk out the door to Tashard Choice, and Wells Choice was in office. Everything that was kind of put out and leaked and rumored and thought of, and everything we heard was the running back room kind of circled around. Javion Osborne was the favorite, and they wanted to land one of, if not both, KJ Edwards and Javion Osborne. And that Xavier Crowell was in the conversation. He's the out-of-state kid from Jackson, Alabama. And since Choice departed, it seems like initially it cooled off on Crowell and Osborne. Edwards was just kind of a even keel. We didn't really hear anything. And then Crowell gets back in. Osborne never really gets back into the conversation. Crowell still feels like he's off in the distance. He's been conversed as a heavy Alabama or Auburn lean stay in state. Osborne obviously pulled back his official visit, says he's going to potentially pick up a Georgia visit, goes on a Georgia spring. It kind of looking like that one day he left open in June for an official is going to probably end up being Georgia.
I totally blanked on that. He does. So Georgia's not one of those already?
Well, no, he said he was leaving. He said he was leaving it open. And that was like a couple weeks ago. And I don't think I saw anything official come out that Javion had selected a team for that weekend, but he had said he was leaving it open for Texas or Georgia or somebody to kind of step up and take it. And it didn't sound like Texas kind of had been that team. And KJ Edwards has been kind of the even keel one that is just kind of seems like he's been focused on. And now we hear that KJ is the focus. Now, in the context of what you're saying and saying like, oh, it's March, which I 100% agree with. It's March. It's not November or December. I think two separate things. One being, if the staff was, I don't think we'd be hearing anything negative about Osborne coming from any party. Not negative, I should say, like anything that would be
Just kind of thinking him and Texas are kind
are
of,
departed. They're
yeah,
they're
they're
two
kind of
different parties, right?
going
They're
into
not a party that's conjoined or trying to have dinner together. They're not trying to be together in a setting, right? And like if you're not in the top 5, you're not in the top 3, you're not taking an official visit, things like this. That's not usually a place a team is going to be in any part of the process and land the player. Now it happens, right? Justice Terry, he happens where he was different. He was committed to USC, decommits. It's a Georgia lean, blah blah blah. Texas comes out of nowhere. He never really had a real like top 5, top 3 down the stretch. The thing about like Edwards and not having Osborne potentially in the fray right now, and your thought of saying, well, will he potentially be in the fray in November? Is I think he has to be in the fray now. And I think the way Ketch said it in being like, well, everyone is out here, like Oregon's out here right now, A&M's out here right now, Clemson's out here, kind of using their sauce or cooking food their way, landing these recruits, landing these players. You have to exactly do what you just said. This staff has proven to you top three, number one, right? They are the 5-star. They are the Michelin dinner. They have the secret sauce, and their process has worked. Their process of talking to these guys behind the scenes in their own conversations through the entire process, keeping long-term conversations, which has been one thing that Sark has stressed a lot of when he talks to the media and he's asked about the recruiting process. It's keeping long-term conversations, real conversations, growing together, not just like, hey man, what's up? Are you going to commit? Like nothing like quick, right? And then getting to the finish line and then actually completing through the finish line, signing and having the deal done. That's part of their secret sauce. Why would you show your secret sauce in March when you can wait till November to do it? I think that's different. And that would be more in line with the potentially, if I had to say take KJ Edwards out of this conversation, if I had to look at the two other running backs, Javian Osborne and Xavier Crowell, if I had to today, outside looking in, look at both of these prospects and say which one do I think is getting the secret sauce treatment, the slow burn treatment, it would be Xavier Crowell because we're not hearing a ton, but we know that there's interest there, right? And Javian Osborne doesn't sound like
I think he was the first one that Chad Scott called.
Correct. As soon as he knew he messed up, as soon as he knew he was late, he didn't immediately call Javian. He immediately called Xavier Crowell. And it feels like the long-term burn would be, if you're going to use that secret sauce in November, it would be on Xavier Crowell. It doesn't seem like it's going to be that on Javian Osborne, which I know for me and for you personally, a guy we're massive fans of. We love the talent. We love the prospect of Javian Osborne. It's going to hurt to see him wearing red and black or scarlet and black or whatever the hell color they are, or maize and blue. It'd be fun to watch him play him, but it's going to be different, just like it is with DeCorian Moore and Michael Fasusi and these other guys.
Yeah. It's great player. We'll see, man. I feel like Texas and him might be going different ways. And here's the thing: who knows? It's like,
has the ship sailed?
Nah, I'm not ready to say that the ship has sailed. I'm not going to just say it yet. It could still happen. I do believe that there's belief out there in the recruiting world that Texas covets KJ Edwards maybe more than Javian Osborne, or at least their actions would indicate that they covet KJ Edwards at this point more than Javian Osborne. And so, if that is the case, what do you think of KJ Edwards? And do you think does he look like, whenever you watch him, does he look like he's 175? Because he doesn't look like a scat back to me. He has he's got really good contact balance, and he's like got good long speed and good enough feet, can navigate through the line of scrimmage really well. I think he's got good vision. I was watching today, Cody, Damian Martinez, the running back from Miami. I'm sure you've watched him a lot this season. I'd seen him in passing when I'd watch Miami play. Of course, saw him at the Senior Bowl. Kind of relatively impressed with him. One of these guys that after I did the film work today with the all 22s, I came away from it not liking him as much. And the reason why was because I'm not sure about the guy's vision. You know, sometimes whenever you can just see it sometimes. You're like, gosh, what did he see there to make that cutback? What is Demart doing here? You know, you watch, and clearly whenever you're watching somebody's huddle highlights, it's not like getting on there and grinding the all 22 of every good play or bad play or everything else from Damian Martinez, who's an NFL draft prospect, of course, not a high school prospect. But with that stuff so front of mind as I was just watching that today and then putting on the huddle highlight just now as you were talking and just watching KJ Edwards, I'm just like, golly, man, the guy can spot his spot, plant his foot, and get to his spot, man, really, really well. Gets through the line of scrimmage well enough. But these are all things that I would associate with stuff that I like out of between the tackles runner that would preferably weigh 195 pounds. What do you think of him? What's your general overall vibe?
Yeah, based on everything on the internet, I was trying to find any updated numbers from the Under Armour camp from a couple weeks ago. Probably might have to shoot Jason a text because he was at the Under Armour camp in Dallas that KJ was at, and everything on the internet obviously this is 175 to 180. They did do height and weight at that event. I don't think those numbers are publicly available. At least I asked Croc to find them. He couldn't find them. Everything on the internet says 175 or 180. So he looks bigger than that.
Yeah, doesn't he look bigger? Or it could just be the way he plays.
Well, yeah, I mean, he also has a play style too, but I'll be honest, I'm not like the most worried about a running back that shows the abilities that KJ Edwards that shows kind of in the open field and the dominance of what do you have, like 1,700 yards and 24 touchdowns in 2023. So I think that he'll be fine. And it's one where you get him into a program. And even if you don't expect something in year one, that guy's going to put on 5-10 pounds this year, 5-10 pounds the following year. And by the time he's a contributor, he's going to be 205, 210 in your program. He's not going to be a guy that's going to come in and contribute in your program at 195 pounds. I don't see. Like he's still a 17-year-old kid in high school. So I, as much as I'm worried about it, and it's like as much as it would be ideal for us to have a 210-pound back coming in out of high school, that'd be awesome. Everybody wants. I mean, who wouldn't want a 6'3", 240-pound Derrick Henry coming out of high school, right? But you don't always get that.
But I don't necessarily want him to be 6'3". If it's Derrick Henry, I'll take him at 6'3".
That's what I'm saying, right? Like,
yeah,
I think we'd all take that out of Yulee when averaging 7,000 yards a game and stuff like that. But I think that KJ Edwards he's a different player than Jaylen Osborne. I'll say that.
Yeah, totally different.
I think he's also different than Damian Martinez. Damian Martinez is like you said.
No, it's Damian Martinez. Well, I was saying the reason why the vision really popped off to me today was because I was watching Damian Martinez. I'm like, man, what is he doing? This guy looks like Sammy Davis Jr. out there. Or was he blind? I forgot if he was. Or no, he only had one eye, right?
Who's got worse vision, Donovan Edwards or Damian Martinez?
Maybe. Oh gosh. Maybe Donovan Edwards. I don't know. Neither of them are. I wouldn't point to either of them and say like, that's it. That's excellent. You know what I mean? I think it's. I wouldn't compare either of them to Texas beef traders. And look, what I say about Texas beef traders is it is excellent. I was just in there yesterday picking up some meat. I was really sad to see that the Delmonico steaks had been all sold out. The steaks that they're at that shop that they've named after me. I go up to get a few Dunlap steaks. Nope, wasn't allowed. But Darren had it lickety split, dude. He's like, dude, I got you covered. He said, I heard you last week talking about these hanger steaks because of that Chef Andrew Gruel tweet we were talking about. He said, so I ordered some hanger steaks this week. So try out this hanger steak. So I'm going to try that. That's the kind of service that you get at Texas Beef Traders. Darren's just going to remember you. He's going to remember the stuff that you talked about. It's the kind of place where everybody knows your name, except it's mainly just Darren. But Darren always knows your name. Make sure to head over to Texas Beef Traders. You get 10% off whenever you tell them you heard about them. Here on Football with Friends, we have our beef jerky link up there. We have all four. I went in today. There is Money B, stop. Yeah, dude. Darren told me that he saw you. Thanks so much for stopping by, Money B. We definitely appreciate you, brother. Um, but yeah, but the beef jerky is delicious. I picked up some yesterday. All four of the Football with Friends Tasty as Hell beef jerky are back in stock. So if you were unable to order it last week, thank you guys for selling it out. But
I
we
think
got
there's only 3 available online. I think it's just cowboy, honey, and smoked garlic today. No jalapeno garlic available online right now.
okay. So the jalapeno garlic. Look, man. Let's be honest. The hot honey's the best anyway.
Yes.
I
Yep.
mean, it's just that it is what it is. Like I asked Aaron if he kind of thought so, and he wouldn't admit it, but he kind of thinks so too. So Texas Beef Traders, TexasBeefTraders.com. Let them know you heard about them here on Football with Friends, and go visit them. Loman's Crossing and 620 right there in the heart of Lakeway. You will never leave disappointed. They have new hours now. They're open every single day with the increased business, and they're also open later. So they don't close at 6 anymore. They close at 8 now, every night of the week, 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. Texas Beef Traders, TexasBeefTraders.com. All right. Anything else from the weekend that you wanted to wrap up as far as recruiting, like these other visits, the Jaylen Lott stuff?
I mean, I suppose we should probably talk a little bit about Jaylen Lott and then the LSU weekend. At least get some initial thoughts.
All right.
Yeah.
So will you just kind of tee us up for it?
Yeah, so Jaylen Lott, first off, over there in the Everything Everywhere All at Once column on Orange Bloods, it's a new column that came out just last week. Ketch is a mastermind of putting this thing together, building it, and getting all the analysis in there from the weekend, from all the visits. It's really important right now just because of so many guys going so many different places, all the spring and all the official visits kind of coming through. Jaylen Lott, receiver / DB out of Frisco, Texas, Panther Creek, is a legacy Longhorn. I can't remember what the other Longhorn's name was.
Somebody in chat will know. But
I was gonna say, I was listening to the show earlier. I can't remember. Catch said like it was like Jim or something. I don't want to discredit it, but anyways, Jaylen Lott went up to Oregon. And Oregon, I always get killed in the comments about how I say Oregon. Doesn't really matter. He goes up there with mom and dad. Mom's all decked out in the Oregon stuff. He's got posting pictures on the internet, doing the O whatever. And Steve Wilfong from On 3 puts in a Fong bomb which is a projection. It's like a future cast on Rivals for Lott to go to Oregon. One of the quotes that Wilfong got from Lott was, "Being able to feel wanted by the whole coaching staff is important to me, and then showing me interest makes me want to commit and become a Duck." That was a quote from him. And then he also said, "I'm really hot on LSU, Oregon, Georgia, Miami, and Ohio State, with no mentions of Texas."
So his dad.
He does have an official schedule for Texas, by the way, just to note.
So his dad was James. His dad is James Lott.
There you go.
And he played cornerback at Texas in the 80s. And his mom played basketball at Texas in the 80s. And
double legacy.
Shouldn't they be wearing like Texas gear to these Oregon visits? Man,
I mean, one could say.
Oh, I don't know, man. It's like both your parents went to Texas. Like you said, it's March, and the teams that you're really hot on. I'm really hot on LSU, Oregon, Georgia, Miami, Ohio State. Like sometimes the teams you're really hot on, like maybe those aren't the one. You know,
what did
you could consider it almost like maybe it's like when you're younger and you're dating or something like that, and like the girls you're hot on, it's like not the ones you're end up going to be circling back around to marry, if that makes sense.
100%. One thing that Ketch said was sometimes maybe like he compared it to, and I'm not old enough to remember anything. He compared it to the Quandre Diggs recruitment. He said Quandre Diggs, he might have been a legacy. I can't remember what the comp.
Well, I think Quentin Jammer was like Quandre's
cousin or brother, something like that. Okay, so
brother something.
So the point he brought up was that Quandre was an athlete, and that the staff wanted him. I can't remember if it was like they didn't want him at receiver or something like this, which is kind of what he was, but he was also an athlete. And then Dwayne Akina was like, and they didn't have an offer. Quandre Diggs didn't have an offer. And he was like begging for an offer, essentially, was the way. I don't want to say he was begging, but whatever. He's a 10-year vet. He was kind of begging for an offer. And Dwayne Akina's like, get him in here. And like he came in and got the offer, and the rest is history. But kind of it just takes one person sometimes. And maybe Jaylen Lott's, I don't know how high of a recruit Quandre was, but maybe Lott's ranked a little bit higher, and maybe has a little more of, the NIL era into it, where he's like, you know what, if you're not going to give me the attention that maybe the nation is, I'm going to go out and not, some things are intentional with these kids. Some things aren't. He might have intentionally not put Texas in that group of 5 just to, say, hey, these guys are offering me money. What are you going to do about it? Like, are you going to you going to push the envelope and make me a focal point? And the Texas side, this could be the secret sauce move, where it's just building a relationship quietly.
We're not going to lead with NIL.
Yeah, it is what it is. We're not going to drop some stupid bag on you in March. We're going to keep the conversation with you. I wonder, what I really wonder, Alex, and this might come, I'm just going to say it just because this is where I'm getting to, was with that process of long-term conversation, getting to the finish line, getting the deal done, and that secret sauce. And maybe I'm naive here, and Ketch could probably tell me more, but, and Jason probably could as well. Do you think that they just don't say anything about NIL? Like, do you think they just don't say anything until, maybe with quarterback, it's different, but like with every other person, do you think they just kind of kick the can, and then come fall, then they start to bring up the numbers, and they just let everybody else, like A&M and Oregon, all these other schools, process it that way and be like, hey man, you come here, you're going to get $500K on day 1. And like at Texas, it's like, just wait till November, and then we'll start showing you what the checkbook looks like. And that's kind of part of the secret sauce, or do you think that that's kind of a naive way of looking at it in my spot?
No, I don't think it's naive. It's interesting. I think that you got to think about it in the setting of the high school recruits versus the transfer portal, because the transfer portal has a more sort of transactional feel to it, right? Because it happens real fast. And this isn't like you've been courting the player for a long time, and they got to make their move pretty quick to keep up with deadlines and be able to get in attendance at times. So you got to get down to brass tacks pretty quick in that spot, right? You still probably don't want to lead with it, but I think you need to get to it in the initial conversation, even if the conversation doesn't
in the portal
out like that. Yeah.
In the portal, But I'm talking about this Jaylen Lott thing, or like a Fasusi or a Justice Terry, or these different ones like this. Like,
I think what happens is you keep the relationship going, you keep it going. You go through the whole thing,
analyze the market,
and then by the time Texas reveals the bag that it's able to throw at you, you say, "Oh gosh, of course, yes, I'm coming to Texas."
Yeah.
But they reveal that maybe later on in the process, right? Whereas if I think dude, it'll be a good case study this year to see how A&M's class holds together.
Well, it's already kind of falling apart,
because A&M has done this stuff where I don't know if it's their strategy, but my theory about A&M's strategy is that they've maybe led a little bit more with NIL at this early point in the season to get the recruiting class looking like it's beefed up and feeling like there's some real flash there with it. Nothing attracts a crowd like a crowd, right? Nothing. It's really hard to generate like organic buzz, and the way to generate organic buzz is to say, like, look at all these guys committing over here, right? That feels just different. I'm not sure that that's what they're doing. It feels sort of like that's sort of maybe their tactic. And you're saying that that's already. So what happened with them? So they had a defensive tackle decommit?
Yeah, so they had today actually defensive tackle. His name is different. I don't want to butcher it. Let me look it up quick. I don't want to say it wrong. He's got a tougher name.
You're probably end up saying it wrong.
Trayshawn Ruffin. He's a defensive tackle from North Carolina. He's a 4-star D tackle. He was committed to the Aggies. he just literally in the last 2 hours flipped his commitment to North Carolina with Bill Belichick, where he visited in the last 2 weeks. So they lost the D tackle today. They're down to seven commitments right now. I think they've lost 2 in the last. I'm trying to figure it out. I think they lost another one a couple weeks ago. Or maybe that was Oklahoma.
No, I think they did. Or there was one that was gonna, or yeah, but I can't remember who.
Markel Ford. He was a safety from Mesquite. Yeah. That was last week.
Where's Trayshawn Ruffin from?
Trayshawn, it just happens to be from North Carolina.
I mean,
but that's the thing about the class. All the commitments are from out of state. New Jersey, Cali, Georgia, Utah.
We'll see, man. It's like, do you want to get them on board early and hold them together and hold off all the other schools coming and trying to poach them, herding cats, patting hands, deal tending, all this stuff? Or do you want to continue to curate the relationship and let them know, man, that you're still there. We still want you, all this stuff, we're not here to tell you can't take visits anywhere else. We're not here to, like we're here to, we're here in the business of developing relationships and developing culture and, building a winning program and stuff. And, it's, to do so, we have to trust one another. So look, we're just calling to check in. Like maybe that's certainly, it's weird, man. In a lot of ways, like I've already said one thing about dating, but that's kind of like dating too. I honestly think that, like, if I had advice to tell like a young man or something like that, when you're like, the worst thing you can do is act like desperate. Say, no. You got to be my girlfriend. You know what I'm like the girls run away from that. Like, it's just, that's complete, it's a complete disaster. So
I thought you liked me. Come on.
Yeah. Come on. Just sign. Maybe it's, I don't know. Maybe that is part of the secret sauce. And when you're Texas, like, it should kind of go without saying that the resources are going to be there. And if the kid's smart enough to realize it, that's a kind of guy. It's like, maybe it shows he's got some smarts and he's got a way about him that's, that would fit in with your culture. We'll see how it goes. But that Texas versus Texas A&M thing, as far as the different paths that they're taking this year, definitely a good case study. And I'm still, people on Orange Bloods are freaking out right now. And I think it's crazy to freak out right now. But we'll see what happens with the rest of it. Any other recruiting things? There was a couple of things I read on The Athletic that I wanted to ask you about that I read today.
Just a quick one on Zayden Krempin. Zayden Krempin, the tackle from Prosper.
Oh, right.
That I mentioned at the top. People know kind of how the
he's getting his Southwest Airlines miles, Cody.
Yes. I mean, hopefully he's like on Delta or something.
Yeah, he should be.
He's a Booby Feaster. I mentioned him first from DeSoto, the one that reclassified the top receiver. He was down at LSU again. He's been an LSU lean heavily for the last, I don't know, feels like months on end, even before he reclassified. He was down there, as well as Jamarian Carlton, the edge rusher, as well as Zayden Krempin, 3 kind of focal points that are known in the Texas circles. Krempin was at Clemson a couple weeks ago as the unofficial, where he paid his way to get there. Then he went to LSU this weekend, and then today and tomorrow and the next day he's going to be at Michigan, and then he's going to be, like we talked about before, at some other spots. But he's only ever had amazing things to say about the LSU offensive line coach who's been recruiting him. That seems like a pretty standout guy to him. He's also expressed interest in Ohio State, and he's one guy that was like, when Ohio State lost their offensive line coach, Justin Fry, to the NFL, he was like, I'm giving Ohio State time because I'm interested to see kind of what happens. And he loves the what Ohio State's obviously done, winning a national championship. So that's just another one to keep an eye on as he continues to kind of travel the country this spring and summer.
The Zayden Krempin always has such nice things to say about every school he visits.
Isn't that weird?
I think he's just a polite guy.
Yeah.
But we're here to cover it. So it's all right. So I feel good about Texas with that guy. but we'll see what happens. You never know. It's like he's had really good things to say about Kyle Flood as well. So did see that he was taking photos with Will Campbell there on the LSU campus.
We looked like bigger than.
Will Campbell's just not that he's not a big fella.
He kind of, you know what he kind of looks like? He kind of looks like a it's gonna sound weird because he's a big dude, but he just kind of looks like a pudgy quarterback.
Well, so what about this? In the Athletic today, then we got a couple other topics in the hopper. I wanted to ask you what you thought about this. So there's one article about how college football is trying to rein in the wild west of transfers, making players pay to leave, and it's by Stuart Mandel and Ralph Russo.
Buyouts,
and apparently it's already happened. It's already happening. It says you're seeing some stuff similar to coaching contracts with the buyout language in there, said Joe Hernandez of Just Win Management Group, which is something that you wouldn't really see in an NFL player team contract. One Big 12 school required the athlete to pay a buyout equal to 50% of his remaining compensation if he transferred before the end of the deal's term. An ACC school required an athlete to pay back 100% of his earnings if he transferred before January 31st, 2026. So this isn't just like the hypothetical stuff like we were talking about in that Ross Dellinger article, right? This is reporting from Stuart Mandel at the Athletic saying that these NIL contracts, some of this stuff is already in there. Buyouts. What do you think about the idea of players having to pay buyouts or other schools having to pay their buyouts if they transfer?
I think
you have to do it.
I think other schools paying the buyout is warranted. Think about like a big contract that you might.
We've been having this conversation. You're like, I think other schools paying buyouts is warranted. It's like that's so crazy. It's crazy town.
We knew we were getting into, dog. We knew, and I say we as like the whole college football everything base. We know we're getting into letting this whole thing happen.
It's just it's just thing after thing.
Yep.
Like I can't even imagine what's coming next. Like
this is the best part about being in like the seats we're in right now. It's like we always talk about, what are we going to plan for a show today? How are we going to fulfill a show here? How are we going to do a show for Ross George? How are we going to do? What are we going to? The art of football, man. And like we talk about the NFL. The NFL is becoming a 365-day-a-year thing. College football is a 450-day-a-year thing. Every day feels like 4 days of information that comes out. And you're like, well, I didn't see that coming. Oh, West Virginia is suing the NCAA because they didn't get into a tournament. Oh, buyouts in college. What? Like, nope, you're not entering the portal. And like all these things, like contracts they exist, but they're kind of 1 year, but then you can't opt out. You can't leave before the third. Like what? You can't, I signed a deal to come to your school, but then January 31st is my stay through date. What does that even mean? I guess technically the championship is like the 26th or something, but if your team sucks and you don't even make a bowl game, why do I have to stay on the roster till the 31st of January?
You will, yeah. I mean, that whole thing about the 31st of January too, it just ensures that they would have to enter in the spring portal window. But but it's just like it's just
what happens if they get rid of a portal window and there's only one portal window and it's like the first week of January or something, and that's not even planned yet. Like something could just.
But here's my main question. Is NIL with NIL, are we paying guys to play football?
Technically not. Technically, you're paying them because of their notoriety, because of what they do. It's not because of you're not paying them to play football, because that would be paying them as employees, and they're not employees. You're paying them for their notoriety in the sport or in life in which they partake in the sport, right?
Okay. But my question is this: if schools aren't paying them to play football, and schools are simply, I thought in the spirit of look, and I guess it shows my name is Cody Carpentier. I
That's
didn't.
crazy.
I just looked and saw that. If they're not paying guys to play, and if the spirit of NIL is to say we're only allowing, how did you change that?
Clicked on your face on the right side of the screen and clicked edit.
Can you change it to add Alex Dunlap NFL?
Yeah.
If the spirit is saying, okay, we're not paying them. We're simply allowing them to make money off their name, image, and likeness, aka NIL. Right? How can you say that you have to fulfill these on-field obligations for us, or you got to pay us back the money?
Well, okay. Well, that's a different ball game.
It doesn't make sense to me. And maybe I could be being completely stupid about this.
Well, in reality, any fulfillment of like, hey, you must play all the games for us, which we've heard that come out the last couple of weeks, which you have to play a certain amount of games, certain amount of, whatever.
Well, that to me is a clear,
an error, right? Because the error would be in like the employment side of things. Like they'd have to be an employee for my thoughts would be to make this make sense. They'd have to be employees in order to get paid to play the game of football. But being paid because of your name, image, and likeness is how I kind of explained it earlier. It's not because you're getting paid to play football. It's because you're getting paid because of how well known you are in the sport or in life at which you participate in that sport. And that goes across the board, like the Livy Dunn thing. Livy Dunn's good in gymnastics, but she's not the GOAT at gymnastics. She's just very well known within every space, including social media, right? So her valuation's this high. It's not like, hey, we're getting hypothetically $4 million out of you on a gymnastics floor, but we may be getting $4 million worth of you in commercials, in school. What's the word I'm looking for? When you go to school, you get new people to show up and go to school. Like when Alabama wins a championship, it always seems like there's an influx in students that brains going empty. You get what I'm saying, though. Kids that go to school at Alabama, like when you win a national championship, there's always a percentage hike in
influx is fine.
Influx.
It causes an influx.
An influx in student
school,
populace
in school right, and applications and stuff like
that.
So
that's kind of what I'm getting at is like that's where the money valuation comes in, and that's not on the field, right? Like that's like there's no way a gymnastics participant can reap $4 million in value to the school in gymnastics. It comes in other ways, and in football terms, it's a different sport, it's a different way of looking at it. But even if you put in these markers of, you can't leave before January 31st, like the post and pre June 1st cut and trade date in the NFL, or the buyout, right, for coaches and players, or the dead cap in player salaries, all these different things. It's all employment based. It's not like, it'd be like, the way it's built right now is like, hey, Alex, you have 100,000 followers on Twitter. Because of your name, image, and likeness, I'm going to give you $100,000 to come to my softball team, play for my softball team. And you show up, I give you $100,000, you play one tournament. And I'm like, well, I got you for the season. You're like, so I'm entering the portal. Like, I'm leaving. Bye. And like, what am I going to do about that? Because you're not my employee. You're just a participant in this thing, right? I'm paying you. It's like, does that make sense?
Kind of. The whole thing about me playing softball doesn't make too much sense.
Okay. Well, it's like, you ask somebody to come, I don't know.
You're trying to talk about something it's two cockamamie things that don't go together. And that's sort of what this is.
That's what I'm saying. That's why it makes sense in my head is it's like, when I think of like
I think that's why some of these attorneys say some of this stuff can't be it's like they aren't sure yet, but they're saying that they don't think it could be enforceable. And
You
I
have
think
to
that
be
would depend on the
employment.
judge and like all the rest of it, right?
You have to be an employee, man. It's bottom line is it has to be employees and contracts, period.
So, but there's so what it is that I think that they think that because so this has happened only over the course of this last transfer portal window, really, where they're starting to get a bunch of this stuff, right? And so what it is like the sort of the shift in negotiation dynamics has been, um, what they say in the article. It's there's been a lot of programs that have hired general managers to take over the NIL negotiations, where it's not so much like external NIL collectives, where it's these kind of, fans and boosters and you know, some accounting guy that's a do-gooder that they've hired to kind of be in charge of this and make sure all the money goes to the right spots and things like that. They're not thinking about like, we got to give this guy buyouts. And they hire these guys that have been in the league. They've been general managers. They've been around this kind of stuff. They're wired to think in this kind of way. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And they're thinking, well, as long as right now nobody's telling me I can't do it, why not do it? It's a super, super wild deal for me. I think, but believe it or not, Cody, it might not be as wild as what Deion Sanders wants to do, and we're going to tell you about that right after we hear from our good friends over at Specs.
At Specs, it doesn't cost a lot to turn a good time into a great time, especially if you like saving money. From connoisseur collectors to aficionados of ale, you'll find bubbly bliss at any budget with a Texas-sized selection of world-class wines, rare spirits, craft beers, and more. So when you're getting ready for a good time, Specs is ready to make it great. Because at Specs, the fun starts here.
Shop Specs, low priced, amazing. Here's to you.
Yes. Thank you guys so much for being here on a big Monday. It is Football with Friends here on Orange Bloods Live. We're here every night. So if you enjoy the show, make sure you tune in again tomorrow and the next day and the next day. We love having all of you who are watching live and everybody who will watch live tomorrow. All right, Cody. So for Deion,
Greatest idea ever.
He wants to kind of go the NFL route too, right? For his spring football, but in a whole different way.
I love it.
He wants to hold joint practices with other competitive football teams, and at the end of the spring football, and then at the end of it, have a game between your team and their team where you go at it, and you just see who's best.
That part I don't like. I think joint practices, phenomenal. Phenomenal. I think a joint practice would be phenomenal. I've been to a few of them on the pro side. And
not from putting yourself in you could talk about your experience with joint practices in one second, but I gotta clear this up. As far as what you're saying you're not a fan of it as somebody who just likes to watch football and likes college football and stuff. Because if we're talking about it from that angle, of course I would love it. I would love to watch.
Everybody in the world would.
Okay, so there's that, but you're saying it from the mindset of a program.
From a no offense, Deion, from a using your brain perspective of like, I want to make sure my guys are healthy. I want to get out of this clear and cut and clear. Like, one of the things that I respect and like the most out of like Mike Tomlin is he holds the best practices, in my opinion, I've ever seen. Like, I know, like we heard earlier about like the Georgia practices with Kirby Smart. Kirby's wired very similar to Mike Tomlin. And the way Tomlin holds practices is everything's exactly how he wants it. It's dialed. They're hitting hard in certain sectors of practice. They're taking it easy in certain sectors. Everything is as dialed as you could ever imagine. And this past year, they had Buffalo in for a joint practice, and they had it on the big field. And generally, when you see these joint practices, like I've been to a few of them, and particularly like Jacksonville and Tampa, right? They'll have joint practice, and they have like 3, sometimes 4 football fields at one complex. And so there's like offensive lines over here, team 1, team 2's over here, like all these different situations you can have set up and present. Like Texas has talked about having 2 different fields operating at the same time. Imagine 2 different teams, and you could split that up even further, and you get a lot of work in is kind of the point here. And the way that like I'm talking about Mike Tomlin and Buffalo is these guys came in on one single field and they had one of the most efficient practices you'd ever see. And they had live sessions where they played real football, and it was big thud. Nobody got smoked. Nobody got dropped.
You have
But,
Joey
like,
Porter Jr. lining up on Keon Coleman, and it's
correct.
like you
You're
just
getting
go.
real reps, one-on-one reps. Everyone's fully padded out. Taylor Rapp's coming over the middle, cracking a dude, but he's not taking him to the ground. It's just good pop. It's good thud. Again, you're getting that's ramping up for the whole season to begin. We're talking about spring, getting some feel, getting some thud, getting some real tape on guys. I think that's very important. If Fran Brown and Syracuse travel to Colorado for a week and they're there for 3 practices, I think you can get a lot of good work in. You can get a lot of good tape in. But the game aspect, I think, makes no sense. And also regionally, I'm not sure if like a Syracuse and Colorado makes the most sense. I think regionally, you might be looking at more like Colorado and Utah, or Colorado and
CSU.
Yeah, I was gonna say CSU, but like sort of I don't know how rivals work, and like you might have some
true. You couldn't
sticky stuff going on there.
And whose school do you do it at?
Yeah. Well, that's the thing also. It's like you say, like, this year, maybe it's a home and home type of a deal. It's like, all right, hey, Colorado is like, hey, you know what, Kansas, we're going to do home and home joint spring practices. This year we're going to come here. Next year we're going to go there. And that's just kind of how you go at it. There, this is like everything else. There's ways to get this to unfold. Maybe it's like Texas and, Arkansas peanut butter, or like rice or something. I don't know. I don't know how that looks. I don't know what that's worth for a Texas.
That wasn't Deion, because Deion said other competitive teams. He wants.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. I don't know how you would, like, you're not going to have a joint against Tech. You're not going to probably have a joint against like A&M.
Tech is competitive. It could of course not A&M. You couldn't be versus an SEC team.
Correct. But what I'm saying is, like, I'm trying to brainstorm through, like, would that be something you'd want to do? Would you want to have a joint against Tech? Would that just be giving you an opportunity to? What I'm saying is, like, there's a little.
If I'm Sark, and I've already said I don't want these to be as physical, and I don't want us cracking helmets and all this. We're going to do it during select time.
I don't want rivals coming in.
All that. Like, he's gonna say no. I've run my own practice, and what Deion's saying is that's just Deion. He's just talking. Like, no, we're not going to do that. See, it goes against what he had said. He's not saying he wants spring practice to be easier, but he's saying he wants it to be more learning.
Listen, I'm not saying this is the best idea.
You don't bring other teams in to have more individual and learning periods. You bring them in to have more team focused and competitive periods.
So maybe this is a Power 2 conference break off. You see the SEC Big Ten break off in 2 years, and then everybody else gets left behind, and it's the Kansases of the world and everybody else like that. And then that becomes like the new thing where that's there. Colorado probably gets in that bunch, obviously. And that's the New World Order and whatever they call that division.
Yeah, well, it's I'm not sure. I wouldn't call it a new world order with those titans of the college game. Now you can email us FWF emails at gmail.com. We know that most of you, 95% of you, are going to be watching this later, but we can't thank those of you in the Specs chat line enough for being here. Cody, do you have something you want to say?
Well, one, I've heard there's emails in the email. I'm going to press Alex live here that he needs to check email more. And number 2, Alex went hunting this weekend and we have no pictures. So I'm expecting pictures tomorrow, Alex, because I've heard through the grapevine, I don't know who told me, but I've heard that there was some successful hunting.
Very successful trip, but the pictures aren't going to be that good because we did get 2 axis deer on the ground, but it was 2 axis does, and so nobody wants to see a picture of an axis doe.
All we need some proof. We just need to get it. We'll give you 24 hours. We need some proof. We need some proof of successful hunting.
2 axis does, two nice, just good pigs. When I took it to the processor today, those pigs were like, it was like 90 pounds of quartered up meat of axis and 70 pounds of quartered up meat for pigs. So it's going to be good, man, for sure. It's going to be good tomorrow too. I'll provide some kind of proof for sure. And we'll also be back every night, 6 to 7 p.m. Here Central Time Alex and Cody, Football with Friends on Orange Bloods Live. We can't thank you guys enough. Just ask you for 4 things. 1, please like the show. Please subscribe to the channel. If you like the show and you have a friend you think that might like the show, let them know about it. We're here talking Longhorns, SEC, NFL draft, recruiting, whatever it is for the day. If it's football, we'll talk about it. And we can't thank you guys enough for helping the show to grow in popularity, even here during the middle of March. It's just wild to me. So thank you guys so much for that. The other thing is just come back tomorrow. All right. Love you guys. God bless you. Thanks to Poncho Outdoors. Thanks to Specs. Thanks to Texas Beef Traders. Thanks to myperfectfranchise.net. God bless all you guys. We'll see you tomorrow. We're done.